Chapter 2 Preparing for the Fray. The local police duly informed their headquarters of this open defiance of British law in Tipperary. They were ordered to arrest the culprits, but, as we had no desire to enjoy the hospitality of His Britannic Majesty's jails, Sean Tracy and I went on the run. That is to say, in order to evade our pursuers, we had to leave our homes and keep moving from the house of one trusty friend to another. But on the Friday following our public parade, Sean was arrested by the Peelers. Members of the RIC were better known in Ireland for generations as Peelers, a term of contempt coined from the name of Sir Robert Peel, who, in the early part of the 19th century, first organised the force. Sean was taken to Cork Jail, where he first met the brothers Brennan of Meath, County Clare, who were also unwilling guests of the British jailers. The three brothers Brennan, Austin, Paddy and Michael, afterwards became famous officers in the Southern Command of the Irish Republican Army, and at present hold high ranks in the Free State Army. In passing, I should say that in throwing men into prison at that time, England really was giving them an excellent opportunity of exchanging views, discussing plans for the future, and generally turning the prison into a university for rebels. Many indeed learned more about drill and the methods of making explosives while they were in prison than they had ever known before. Sean was eventually tried by court-martial and sentenced to 2 years imprisonment, but 16 months of the term were remitted. These trials were, of course, a mere formality, for our men never put up any legal defence, but declined to recognise the right of any British tribunal to try them. Very often in the early stages, our men turned the proceedings into farce by reading a newspaper or singing while the evidence was being taken. With a number of his comrades, Sean went on hunger strike as a protest against their treatment. It was the first time that Irish political prisoners used this weapon, which later became so common. They were removed to Mountjoy Prison, Dublin, where they continued their hunger strike until one of their number, Commandant Tom Ashe, who had taken a leading part in one of the most successful exploits in the 1916 insurrection, died as a result of the attempts made by the prison doctor and officials to feed him forcefully. The tragedy raised the whole Irish nation to fury, and the British government realised for the first time that our men were in earnest ready to die for their principles. An agreement was entered into whereby they were to be treated as prisoners of war, or as political prisoners, and forcible feeding was never tried again. Meantime, I had been busy during my comrades' imprisonment. I organised sections of volunteers in all the surrounding parishes, and as similar efforts were being made all over the country, our military organisation soon became even more perfect than it had been in 1916. The British government, true to its traditions, broke the agreement made with the prisoners, and Sean and his fellow volunteers, who had been removed to Dundalk Jail, went on hunger strike again and secured their release. The organisation and drilling of the volunteers had been done secretly. Now and again the British surprised bodies of men here and there and captured them, but when Sean came back home, he brought back the word that we were to come out in the open to drill, even if the British government attempted to arrest every man of us. It was felt that if England carried out the policy of wholesale arrest, she would soon have tens of thousands of Irishmen in jail, and would again make herself a laughingstock to the nations. This was the early part of 1918. By this time we had been getting a fair supply of arms and ammunition by channels which may not yet be disclosed. It must be remembered that for several years before this, no firearms were allowed into the country. No shops could sell any that they had on hand. Even sporting cartridges could only be bought by special permission of the British military authorities. The enemy scented another insurrection. They became more alert, and once more Sean Tracy was arrested. From the moment of his capture, he again went on hunger strike, was joined by Michael Brennan of Meath and by Seamus O'Neill, a teacher in Rockwell College, both of whom had been arrested 3 days after Sean. During Sean's first term of imprisonment, I had been elected company captain, and now during his second term, I was further promoted to commandant of the battalion, and later still I became brigade commandant. At that period, each company elected its own captain, each man having a vote, and each man being eligible. Company officers in a battalion area then met, and in their turn elected the officers for the battalion, and so with the brigade. Truly it was a democratic army. This was the time when things were going badly with England in the war. In March 1918 began the Great German Offensive when the British lines were broken through. In their despair, the English cried, "Conscript the Irish." Within a few weeks, the necessary act was passed in the British Parliament, and all preparations made to force Irishmen to fight England's battle. Sir John French, later Lord French, himself an Irishman by birth, was British Viceroy in Dublin. The Irish people were roused to action. Never before was there such a fierce determination to resist the British plans. Bishops, priests, and political leaders of all shades of opinion met together to face the threat. In the moment of common danger, all turned instinctively to the Irish volunteers. If resistance was to come, it would only come from their ranks, for England and Ireland well knew that the Irish volunteers would be wiped out to the last man before they would allow a single Irishman to be forced into the British Army. Our trouble was the shortage of arms. Of men we now had too many. At that time I was brigade commandant. We decided to make raids for arms. We knew there were plenty of shotguns, revolvers, bayonets, swords, and an occasional rifle here and there in private houses, especially in the houses of the element loyal to England. We had very little trouble in collecting the arms. Our men in every district had compiled exact information regarding every house in which there was a weapon. We generally went at night and asked for the arms. Those who would have liked to refuse knew they dare not. Many others gave them willingly, and some even sent us word to call for them. In no case had we to fire a shot during the few weeks we were on this job. We had to do the thing as quickly as possible, for as soon as the British got wind of it, they immediately issued an order that all arms should be handed to them for safekeeping. We generally got there first, and more than once our visit to the house was only a few minutes before that of the peelers.